For the invocation led today by Rabbi Daniel Hadar from Temple Moses at the invitation of Commissioner Mickey Steinberg, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
With your honor. May God, who blessed all of the tribes of Israel in the desert, who each walked with their own flag, indicating that each one had their own strength, their own traits, and their own wisdom, but that they all marched together forward. May that God bless this incredible mayor and commission, who each one has their own traits, their own strengths, and their own wisdom, but all march forth together to do great things for Miami-Dade County and for all of the people here. And it is an incredible blessing to see how they bless all of us. It says in the Ethics of Our Fathers that the most honorable are those who give honor. They asked me to face the crowd instead of them because they give all of you honor. May that power of honor bless them and bless all of you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just for a second, I'm going to ask everyone to remain standing. If everyone can remain standing and join us up here, colleagues, in a moment of silence in remembrance of a true trailblazer who meant so much for democracy, specifically and especially for all Cubans and Cuban Americans, our friend Lincoln Diaz-Balart. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, Madam Attorney. Is it in order to move right into reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard?
Good morning, yes.
All right, I will go ahead and open up a reasonable opportunity. I have two signed up to speak. You know the drill, Mr. Young, Stanley Young, and John Beaudry. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Both Mr. Young and John Beaudry can approach. Mr. Young, that would be you.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity that I can come before you and share my passion, something I have been doing for over 35 years, and that's helping and assisting inmates incarcerated who are name and address. Chaplain Stanley Young, 500 Northwest 2nd Avenue. This resolution that you have here, 3B1, is to help our jail that desperately needs your support. They need you to, there's over 4,000 inmates that are incarcerated right now in our jail that a lot of them are getting their life turned around, and we got officers who work there in this facility trying their best to comfort, trying their best to continue serving these inmates. In some incidents, it can turn into a hostile environment. But they're there, they're dedicated officers. And I came to support our detention officers who serve in our prisons, in our jail. And I'm here to ask you to pass this resolution to help Director Green to help facilitate these jails that we have. And I thank you, and God bless you.
All right, so is Mr. Beaudry not here? John? You may approach. Same rules. You got 2 minutes. State your name and address for the record.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Elijah John Baudre. Address is 1750 North Bayshore Drive. And I'm here actually to just give a kudos on behalf of the technology community and the Miami-Dade Digital Commission for Miami-Dade County, and to speak in the affirmative to urge the United States Legislature to invest more in our municipality, specifically in the areas of technology for the rapid advancements in AI, quantum computing, blockchain, cryptocurrency technology, as well as cybersecurity, which is one of the foremost tenets of this digital commission. And so on March 7th, Friday, March 7th, the White House announced that they're going to have their first ever crypto summit, which I'll be attending and learning about what the advancements and policies are for cryptocurrency specifically, and representing Miami-Dade County and all the community of entrepreneurs and academics and investors that live here. And so it's my job to keep us all informed, and I take it seriously, and it's an honor. So thank all of you, and just to leave you with, Miami is a special place, and we will make sure that we maintain the lead, because we truly are peering over the precipice of a paradigm, preparing to pioneer a new path, realizing that this physical world can only be accepted as first, and that our digital reality can no longer be denied at last. These tectonic transitions caused by technology's position have the prodigious potential to transform every tier and class. So we've been entrusted this vision so that with prudent decisions, Miami can be multiplied by this immutable math. As once again, I'm cryptocurrency chairman Elijah John Baudre, humble servant. Thank you guys. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
All right, reasonable opportunity is now closed. I have no further speakers signed up. Madam Attorney, is it in order to set the agenda at this time?
Yes. We do have preliminary matters. Item 2B7, Senator Garcia adds this item to the poll list. 8G3, Senator Garcia adds this item to the poll list. 8N1, Senator Garcia adds this item to the poll list. 803 and its supplement, Commissioners Gonzalez and Regalado add their names to the poll list. This item has a supplement. The supplement for this item is added to the poll list. 11A2, Commissioner Bermudez adds this item to the poll list. 11A5, Commissioner Regalado is adding this item to the poll list. 11A9 and its supplement, Senator Garcia adds his name to the poll list. The item has a supplement, and so the supplement's added to the poll list. 14A4, Commissioner Bastien pulling the item. 14A5, Commissioner Cabrera and Commissioner Gonzalez are pulling this item. 14A6, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins is pulling this item. And 15B1, Commissioner Cabrera is adding the item to the poll list. I have some additional requests for co-sponsorship. 802, Commissioner Regalado. 11A8, Commissioner Cabrera and Steinberg. 11A13, Commissioner Steinberg. 14A5, Commissioner Bermudez, Regalado, and Gilbert wish to be listed as co-sponsors. In addition, if the sponsor is willing to allow co-prime sponsors on 14A5, a number of commissioners have expressed interest in being listed as co-prime sponsors instead.
Add me to that as well, Jerry, please.
Me as well.
Please add me as well.
Same here.
14.5.
Same.
That's Cohen-Higgins.
Do I add everyone that's here?
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say so.
Okay, and then, does Commissioner Gonzalez, do you wish,
I'm gonna recognize him.
Absolutely.
co-primes? Okay, will do. Commissioner Steinberg is also pulling 8P2 and 8P3.
What number were those again?
Is that it, Jerry?
No, I need to keep going. I'm sorry. I'm still getting some stuff. And Senator Garcia would like to co-sponsor 11A3 and 11A14. The items to be considered at today's meeting will be those listed in the printed final agenda with the additions, deferrals, withdrawals, and scrivener's errors noted in the chairman's memorandum and the items I just mentioned. The commission will approve all these items by a single vote setting the agenda except ordinances for first reading, public hearings, ordinances set for second reading, and the following pull list items: 2B7, 8G3, 8N1, 803 and its supplement, 8P2, 8P3, 11A2, 11A5, 11A7, Mr. Chair, 11A7, Commissioner Gilbert's the only polling commissioner on 11A7.
I think there's two, 11A7 and 11A11. Can we
Correct.
release those items since he's not present today?
Those can be approved with the setting of the agenda since
Perfect.
he's not approved.
I'd like to be added to 11A7, please.
Okay, so 11A7 will remain on the pull list, being pulled by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, but 11A11 will be approved with the setting of the agenda. So 11A7 remains on the pull list, 11A9 and its supplement remain on the pull list. 14A1 is a first reading item. I'll read that with the other first readings. 14A2, 14A3, 14A4, 14A6, I'm sorry, 14A5, 14A6, and 15B1. A motion to set the agenda is in order.
It's been moved by Commissioner Regalado, seconded
Yes.
by Commissioner Bastian. All in favor of setting the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Show the agenda hereby set. Madam Attorney, can we start with 14A5?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, folks, this is an item that I think is near and dear to everybody's heart. I mean, we've seen about how many folks jumped on the opportunity to co-prime sponsor this. You know, Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart, I think he best exemplifies what it means to be a public servant. Having spent 24 years of his life in elected office, 18 of which were spent in the United States House of Representatives, Lincoln worked tirelessly for the residents he represented, pushing for true democracy in Cuba and greater respect for immigrants everywhere. As the creator of the Nicaraguan Adjustment and Central American Relief Act, Lincoln offered hope to thousands of Nicaraguan, Cuban, Salvadorian, and Guatemalan families fleeing the political turmoil in their home countries. Lincoln was a natural-born leader, and as a natural-born leader, he did not fight alone. Instead, he inspired others to fight with him. That is why he helped found the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute to empower future generations of Hispanic leaders and show the Hispanic community that their voice matters. To Lincoln's family, I assure you that his legacy will be felt for generations to come. And for that, I thank you, and Miami-Dade County thanks you. Mr. Chairman, I actually do have an amendment to this item. If the attorney can please read that amendment.
Recognize.
Commissioner Gonzalez moves to amend item 14A5 to urge President Donald J. Trump and Governor Ronald D. DeSantis, respectively, to order that the United States and Florida flags be flown at half-staff in the appropriate locations and for the traditional amount of time in mourning for and honor of the late former Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart.
All right. Is there a motion to?
With that, I move the item, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gonzalez moves the items as amended, seconded by the Vice Chair. Any further discussion on 11A5? Seeing Commissioner Bastian, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just would like to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would like to make a statement about Congressman Diaz-Balart. We are living in a climate where people tend to make decisions in a partisan manner. For many years, I collaborated with Congressman Diaz-Balart, Lincoln Diaz-Balart, not only for NACARA, the Nicaraguan Adjustment Act, but also for HERIFA, which was the Haitian Immigrant Fairness Act of 1998. When he introduced NACARA, a group of leaders went to him and met with him about the plight of the Haitian immigrants at that time. He told me, Marlene, I understand the plight. I guarantee you, once NACARA is passed, I will work with you. I will work with you for a law that would benefit the thousands of Haitian refugees at that time. It kept his word. We collaborated with him, brought people to Washington, D.C. to work on NACARA, and then he worked across the aisle to make sure that HERIFA, the Haitian Immigration Fairness Act of 1998, passed, was signed into law by President Clinton. Congressman Lincoln Ballard was a man of his word. He was a decent individual, tough, but decent and compassionate. He understood the contributions that immigrants from all over the world made to this country. And then when he gave his word, he made sure that he kept it. So it's not only certain immigrants who are mourning the loss of this great leader, this iconic leader. People from across the United States and around the world are mourning because he was a man who understood that it was important to reach across the aisle to make sure that the contributions of immigrants from all over the world who come here in search of safe haven, that their contributions are recognized. He was tough, but he was also a compassionate man. So I'm joining my voice with the voice of everyone in this global diaspora, in the US and the global diaspora, to say, go in peace and rest in peace, love, and power. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bermudez.
Yeah, first of all, I commend all of you and Commissioner Gonzalez for making sure that we recognize everything that Lincoln Diaz-Balart has done for South Florida, and condolences go out to his wife, children, his brothers, and the family. I just wanted to point out that something that Commissioner Bastien said. Congressman Diaz-Balart, and I had a chance to work with him as a young attorney that was spending a lot of time on human rights. There was no greater fighter for democracy, not only in this country, but across the world. And it wasn't limited just to Cuba, because anywhere that there was a lack of democracy, whether it be Burma or be Venezuela or Nicaragua, we can go down the list, he was there to support. And I think the sign of a great elected official is that he definitely had great impact at the national level. He had great impact at the state level and local level, and certainly represented, I think, our interest here in South Florida. But he went beyond that in the sense that his commitment to democracy at a time where it's getting a little bit difficult to support democracies nowadays, but I think his commitment to democracy and his family's commitment to democracy, I think, was incredibly important. And as far as the Cuban American community is concerned, there are many that are here and many that have passed before him, that Congressman Diaz-Balart was at the forefront of helping them, the organizations. And there's a lot of people still fighting inside Cuba that received the support of Lincoln Diaz-Balart. And, I think that's, again, as Commissioner Bastien said, it's not just people here in South Florida, but people in other parts of the world, whether it be Haiti, Nicaragua, Cuba, that certainly today would join us in certainly wishing the family, wishing the best of the family and our condolences, but in remembering the great effort that Congressman Diaz-Balart did over all these years. So I'm very glad. This is one of those where I'd have to say something because having worked with him, there was not a greater warrior for democracy than Lincoln Diaz-Balart.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Regalado.
Thank you. And to echo some of the words of my colleagues, Lincoln was a sequel. His father, Rafael Lincoln Diaz-Balart de Gutierrez, was actually an elected official in Cuba. And most of us talk about Lincoln Diaz-Balart as a congressman, but he actually started in the Florida House in 1986 when it was very uncool to be a Cuban. For those of you who remember the 80s, it was a stigma that we carried as we've talked about Mariel and Paradise Lost. He entered as a rep and then later became a senator at a time where Tallahassee wanted nothing to do with Miami-Dade County. And he never, as we say in Cuban, nunca se tragó la bandera. He was always a proud Cuban American, no matter what was happening with Cuban Americans. And he always spoke for what was wrong in that island at a time where no one wanted to say those things. We talk about the impact that Cuban Americans have had in politics now at a national level with Marco Rubio, right? But it was all really started by Lincoln and Ileana, breaking the barriers that no one had broken and saying the things that no one had said. And if you go to Washington, they still refer to us as crazy Cubans. But they were the first that really did the heavy lift for an entire generation. The Diaz-Balart family is an entire family that has been dedicated to service. They've sacrificed so much for that service and have accomplished so much through several generations of public service. And I will say this about Lincoln: he was an amazing statesman. He did so much, not just the author of the Cuban embargo, but also someone that worked on the IRS code and protected widowers and the elderly and tried to find them assistance in Washington, and spoke on so many things, as Commissioner Bermudez mentioned, and Commissioner Bastien, in terms of democracy nationally and internationally, right? But he was an amazing mentor. He mentored so many young politicians, and he was always there to provide advice. Such a passionate speaker. We joke that, if you grew up Miami, my father was probably the soundtrack of your childhood, seconded only by Lincoln Diaz-Balart on the radio, talking about Cuba and talking about the need for change. So really part of an amazing generation of Cuban Americans that have shaped Miami-Dade County and have shaped not only the Cuban diaspora, but our ability to serve at a local and national level. So thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez. We all love Lincoln and his family dearly. Obviously, Christina, Mario, this is a tremendous loss for them. But I think it's an opportunity to highlight everything that their family has done for public service, how many sacrifices they've made, and the tremendous amount of good and change that they have brought to our community.
Thank you. Senator Garcia.
I'll be brief. I just want to thank everyone for the comments, and Commissioner Gonzalez, thank you very much for bringing this condolence resolution before us. Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart represented the area of Hialeah for many, many years in Northwest State. He was steadfast in his commitment not only to his district and his commission, his congressional district in Northwest State, but you're absolutely right, Commissioner Bermudez. He stood up against tyranny wherever it existed, stood up against hate was a man who really believed in human rights, not for one group, but for everyone. And for his family, my condolences, our condolences goes out to his family. I spoke, had communications with his son today and some of his family members, and just know that your father, regardless of how we all see our fathers, this is a man who really did much to affect the well-being and benefited many people, thousands, not only here in the United States, but across this world. And for that, we will all should be grateful, because the one thing that we're all placed on this earth to do is to help others. And by far, he absolutely fulfilled his commitment to his creator and to his community. So God be with him and his family. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I echo the comments that we've heard about our good friend, the late Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart. Commissioner Gonzalez, I heard your motion, your amendment actually. Did your amendment included the county government buildings for purposes of the flag being flown half-staff?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, Mr. Vice Chair, I believe it did. Can we check with the county attorney's office?
Through the chair, information.
Right, Madam Mayor, I suppose you're going to,
The flags are at half-mast, sir.
all right.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for taking the time to honor a great man. So many wonderful things have been said, and all of them so true. I wanted to just let you all know that I also had a personal relationship with him from the beginning of my days in Miami-Dade County, going back 45 years, as he served on the Board of Legal Services of Greater Miami, my first employer. And how blessed we are to have had this role model, as so many have said, and in this time especially, when there's so many challenges to coming together. This is a man who truly brought people together, who really loved and served his community and his God. Thank you, sir.
Everybody in favor of the sympathy resolution, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, so it passed. Madam Attorney, can we take the airport item AP3?
Mr. Chair, that item ended up being pulled, so we'll have to take, that's on your pull list. Commissioner Steinberg pulled that.
Can we take it now?
vote no. I move it.
Yes.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Cabrera. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, show the item passed. All right, and 11, can we take 11A9 quickly, Senator Garcia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Commissioner Gilbert is the other polling commissioner, but he's not here. And really, this is the appointment, and the supplement is the appointment of the remaining vacancies on the mental health task force that we have here in the county.
So you're moving that?
I'm moving the item plus the supplement. Sorry. Yes, with the amendment, if we can amend it.
You read the amendment, Madam Attorney?
Yes, it's to replace all references to Carlos Cruz with Gustavo Cruz, replace all references to William Delaney with William Delaney spelled with an EY at the end, waive the requirements of resolution number R63614, which directs the commission auditor to complete background research on any individual being considered as it relates to the appointment of Gustavo Cruz, and to make corresponding changes to the title.
All right, it's been moved as amended by Senator Garcia. It's been seconded by Commissioner Steinberg. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Show the item passed. First reading in order now, Madam Attorney?
Yes, but unless we do have two 14s that were not pulled, do you want to do those quickly, or do you want me to move to the first readings?
Let's do it. Go ahead.
Those were items 14A2 and 14A3.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. Seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, show those two items passed. All right, let's go into first reading items. Madam Attorney, please read all of them.
Yes, 4A is an ordinance relating to county boards, creating section 2-11.39.4 of the code, specifying authority of county boards, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. 4B is an ordinance creating and establishing a special taxing district in the county, generally bounded on the north by Southwest 262 Street, on the east by Southwest 138 Court, on the south by Southwest 264 Street, Bauer Drive, and on the west by Southwest 139 Avenue, known and described as St. Anne Mission Street Lighting Special Taxing District, identifying services to be provided, authorizing and directing the mayor designee to provide for the installation of streetlights, approving a street lighting agreement with Florida Power and Light, and authorizing the mayor's designee to execute the agreement.
Quiet in the back.
Waiving provisions of resolution number R-13006 and providing for exclusion from the code and an effective date. 4C is an ordinance relating to airport zoning regulations in the incorporated and unincorporated areas, amending section 33-333 of the code, revising prohibited uses in the critical approach zone for the Miami-Dade County airports to allow certain emergency care facilities to be established within the zone, revising definitions, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. 4D substitute is an ordinance relating to environmental protection, amending section 24-43.1 of the code, clarifying standards for calculating sewage flow and sewage loading using total floor area, providing exceptions for certain structures when calculating the total floor area, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. And 14A1 is an ordinance relating to zoning and parking in the unincorporated and incorporated areas of the county, amending sections 30-46 and 33-122.2 of the code, increasing required number of parking spaces for persons transporting young children and strollers in certain locations, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. Those are your first reading items.
All right, Madam Attorney, we also have a motion by Commissioner Cabrera. Do you want to read that now, or would that be after?
We could do that immediately following.
All right, so any bifurcations on first reading items? Seeing none, they've been moved by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, second by the Vice Chair. We need a roll call.
Yes.
All right, Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bastien. Commissioner Bermudez.
Yes.
Commissioner Cabrera.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
4.
Senator Garcia. Commissioner Gonzalez.
4.
Commissioner Hardeman. Commissioner Regalado. Commissioner Steinberg. Vice Chairman McGee.
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez.
I vote yes.
Motion moves unanimously.
All right, show the first reading items approved. Mr. Attorney, you're recognized for a motion by Cabrera.
Thank you. Commissioner Cabrera moves to suspend the board's rules of procedure and waive the 4-week, 6-week municipal notice requirement as to items 4C and 14A1. Amend item 15B1 to set the public hearings on these items for the April meetings of the committees to which they have been assigned. Direct the clerk of the board to publish all necessary notices, and direct the agenda coordinator to send the appropriate municipal notices.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cabrera. It's been seconded by Senator Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Show the motion passed.
Mr. Chair, with the approval of that motion, 15B1 was also approved as amended and is no longer in your pull list.
All right, show it passed as well. Can we move into public hearing items now?
Yes, I'll read them all.
Go ahead.
5A is a resolution renaming the Park West Metro Mover as the Miami World Center Metro Mover Station and its supplement. 5B is a resolution approving a grant application with the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration for Urbanized Area Formula, State of Good Repair Formula, Bus and Bus Facilities Formula, and FTA Flexible Program Funds. 5C is an ordinance creating and establishing a special taxing district in the county, generally bounded on the north by theoretical Southwest 355 Street, on the east by Southwest 178 Avenue, on the south by Southwest 360 Street, Lucille Drive, and on the west by Southwest 180 Avenue, Southwest 5 Avenue, known and described as Antilia Multipurpose Maintenance and Street Lighting Special Taxing District, identifying services to be provided, authorizing and directing the mayor designee to cause to be maintained and operated various public improvements, and to provide for the installation of streetlights, approving a street lighting agreement with Florida Power and Light, and authorizing the mayor and mayor's designee to execute the agreement, waiving provisions of resolution number R-13006, and providing for exclusion from the code and an effective date. 5C1 is a corresponding resolution approving, adopting, and confirming the preliminary assessment rule for the district. 5D is an ordinance creating and establishing a special taxing district in the county within the boundaries of the city of Homestead, generally bounded on the north by Southwest 344 Street, East Palm Drive, Southeast 24th Street, on the east by theoretical Southwest 152 Avenue, theoretical Southeast 28th Avenue, on the south by Southwest 352 Street, Southeast 32nd Street, and on the west by theoretical Southwest 160 Avenue, theoretical Southeast 20 Avenue, known and described as Keys Gate Subdivision Multipurpose Maintenance Special Taxing District, identifying services to be provided, authorizing and directing the mayor designee to cause to be maintained and operated various public improvements, and providing for exclusion from the code and an effective date. And 5D1 is the corresponding resolution relating to the Keys Gate Subdivision Multipurpose Maintenance Special Taxing District, located entirely within the boundaries of the city of Homestead, transferring the district to the city of Homestead, and waiving election. 5E is a resolution approving the plat of MIR Estates filed by Magnolia Redland Estates LLC. 5F is a resolution taking action on a Class 1 permit application by the county through its Seaport Department for the creation of Berth 10 through non-maintenance dredging of tidal waters, upland excavation, submerged land creation, and the installation of a new seawall, return wall, and tow wall footer in the tidal waters of Biscayne Bay. Those are your public hearing items.
Do we have any bifurcations? Well, actually, I don't have any public
Yes,
speakers.
I apologize. We do. Senator Garcia would like to bifurcate 5B and 5E.
5B and 5E.
Yes.
Garcia. All right, we have no public speakers, so public hearing has been open and closed. Any additional bifurcations from the dais? Seeing none, Senator Garcia, you're recognized on 5B.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 5B has to do with the electric buses, and we keep on hearing that we're having issues with the buses that we've already currently purchased. And I'm trying to find out what exactly, why are we, what's this money being used for? What do we need this money for? I understand it's a grant, and it's great to have these dollars come into the county, but I want to make sure that while we receive these grant dollars, that we are having a fleet that is working. If not, we need to find another course of action.
All right, so Director, just hold 1 second. I thought it was going to be a little bit simpler. I thought it was just like a no vote or something. So let me take the remaining of the items. Is there a motion on the remainder of the public?
So moved.
I'm bifurcating 5E for now.
Correct. Okay, and 5B, those two remain bifurcated. It's been moved by Commissioner Cabrera, seconded by Commissioner Regalado. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bermudez. Commissioner Cabrera.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
4.
Senator Garcia.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
4.
Commissioner Hardiman. Commissioner Regalado.
Yes.
Commissioner Steinberg. Commissioner Bastien. Vice Chairman McGee.
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez.
I vote yes.
Motion moves unanimously.
Okay, show those approved. 5E is moved by the Vice Chair and seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. Is that a voice? What is this? 5E is.
It's
yep, all in.
it's a voice vote.
A vote. Wait, you have a question on it, Senator?
That's voting no.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Aye.
All right, show the item passed. All right, we're back on 5B. Director, you have the floor.
Good morning. Through the chair, Joseph Diaz, Interim Director, Department of Transportation and Public Works. In terms of 5B, Commissioner, this is a formula grant that we receive on a yearly basis. For purposes, it is assigned by the Congress, and then it's based on population and provided through FTA. Some of the items that we have here basically are proposed by the department, and it's for rail maintenance and many other items. In terms of capital, you will see here that there is some payment towards electric buses. This is unrelated to any Proterra buses that are existing. This is for the reimbursement to PTP of the new flyer buses that we're doing for the South Corridor. We already have 25 buses. On the Proterra side, that's following its own course, and we're trying to work with the new company that has acquired them to try to get them to honor the warranty.
So then the $5.6 million that's going for the rehab, for the electric buses right now, that would be to help supplant the costs that the county has already issued. What was that? Do you know what the cost was?
The total cost of the new buses, I would have to get back to you on that, but I remember the range being closer to $80 million, and it's financial payments.
So it's a $5.6 million for that $80 million. Do we have any assurances that these buses now that we have are going to work better than the previous ones that we purchased and really squander that money away?
They have gone through extensive testing. The difference here is that And I don't want to speak of the prior company, but this new company is a very reputable company in terms of provision of buses. I've been in business for many, many years and provided many of our buses in the past. So there is a higher level of trust in terms of the provision of these buses.
I move the item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. I have a quick question, really quickly for you. So, because I noticed you grazed over that quite quickly as it relates to the previous company. So walk me through this. The county paid the previous company. What is the name of the previous company?
The previous company was Proterra.
How much did we pay them?
It's about $69 million was that contract.
So we paid them $69 million. How many did they fulfill their obligations?
They fulfilled their obligations up to a point.
Up to what point?
They provided the buses. The buses were in operation for some time, and so they started breaking down.
Okay. We paid $69 million. They gave us buses. The buses were no longer operable. So now you're asking us to give more money to a different company to assist with the inoperable buses that were given to us after we paid $69 million?
No, this is for new buses that are going to go into operation in the South Corridor. This is completely different company, completely different service. This is a different deal than the one that happened in the past.
I hear you, but follow what I'm asking you. The previous buses that we purchased at $69 million that we now know don't work, where were those buses supposed to go?
Those buses had been in operation throughout our system.
Okay. All right. For how long?
They were in operation for, I want to say, we started experiencing breakdowns about 2 years into the buses being in operation.
Have we looked into any legal possibilities of getting our monies back or getting a discount or getting some sort of benefit back from that company?
So Proterra filed bankruptcy.
Right.
They were acquired by another company. We're working with that company to try to get our warranty honored. And at this point, Commissioner, we're exploring all options in order to either be made whole in terms of warranty or seeking other avenues.
And last question, what year did we enter into this agreement with Proterra?
I believe it was 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
And I do believe, if my memory serves me correctly, I warned the county that this company was not financially stable and they would be having issues with those buses. And 2025, here we are now. Thank you. Do we have a second? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Looks like the ayes have it. Thank you.
We'll move into second reading items. Are we already on 7?
7A is an ordinance relating to animals, amending Section 5-18 of the code, extending the confinement period for animals impounded under certain circumstances, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. 7B is an ordinance relating to unauthorized use of addresses of county-owned property and filings with the Florida Department of State Division of Corporations, creating Section 21-29.4 of the code, amending Section 8CC10 of the code to provide for penalties, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. Those are your second reading items. And I have a request to bifurcate 7B by Senator Garcia.
All right, so that leaves us with just one other item, right? All right, so Commissioner Cabrera moves 7A, seconded by Commissioner Steinberg. Madam, any discussion on the item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cabrera. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
4.
Senator Garcia. Commissioner Gonzalez.
4.
Commissioner Hardeman. Commissioner Regalado. Commissioner Steinberg. Commissioner Bastien. Commissioner Bermudez.
Yes.
Vice Chairman McGee. Chairman Rodriguez.
I vote yes.
Motion moves unanimously.
Show 7A passed. Senator Garcia, you're recognized on 7B.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this item has to do with penalties for for the illegal use of the county addresses when individuals are filing their paperwork with the state. I see that the penalty is $500. Is there a reason why this is only at $500? Is it in statute, or what? Why can't we do it a little bit higher?
The administration? Or Commissioner Steinberg, would you like to?
No, I like where you're going with this. I asked the same.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I like where you're going with this. I'll let the attorneys answer. I think statutorily, the maximum that we can do per code is 500 per day, but
Madam Attorney?
Yes, because this is a correctable offense, this would accumulate for each day it goes uncorrected. So it would multiply, Commissioner.
That's fair. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that, Commissioner Steinberg moves 7B. It's seconded by Senator Garcia. Any further discussion on 7B? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins,
4.
Senator Garcia,
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
4.
Commissioner Hardiman,
4.
Commissioner Regalado, Commissioner Steinberg, Commissioner Bastien, Commissioner Bermudez,
Yes.
Commissioner Cabrera, Vice Chairman McGee,
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez.
I vote yes.
Motion moves unanimously.
All right, so the second reading item is passed. All right, Madam Attorney, should we move right into the pool list at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and if it's possible, I'd like to correct something for the record. Senator Garcia wishes to co-sponsor item 11A13, not item 11A3. And the first item on your pull list, I believe, is item 2B7. It was pulled by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins and Senator Garcia.
Okay, Commissioner and Senator Garcia? All right, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, you're recognized. On 2B7.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2B7 is the fourth quarter budget report for fiscal year 23-24. And reviewing this quarterly report, it identifies a couple of departments that are running over budget. And my concern is obvious because I just articulated that these departments are running over budget. And there is an item that I believe is coming to committee review next week regarding the budget amendment, and we'll get into it at that time. But I pulled the item because I would like to make a request of the departments that are currently reporting as running over budget, which is ISD and corrections, because it's not just by a couple dollars or a couple $1,000s. One department is in excess of $30 million that I'd like for a presentation at our Appropriations Committee, getting into details as to why that budget overage is taking place and what measures are going to be implemented to take corrective action. Again, sounding rather repetitive, we are in a tight budget cycle, and so any department that is reporting over budget is going to be something that is of great concern to me. So I support the report. I'm not going to vote against it, but I will ask that those directors provide a presentation at Appropriations Committee as to why their departments are running over budget, and a detailed presentation at that. So if I can have a response, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. David, you please coordinate with the Chair of Approps, Cohen-Higgins, to schedule those. Senator Garcia, you're recognized.
Ditto, Mr. Chairman. There was the over budgeted issue.
That was easy. Thank you, Senator. Commissioner Regalado, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I know that in our committee, Commissioner Bermudez has already scheduled a few presentations, so we might want to consider coordinating some of this. Madam Mayor, and David, one of the things that I think we should do definitely moving forward, some of us are very clear on which are enterprise funds, some are not, so I really hope that what is presented to us, there should be a separation. Because obviously when we look at cost cutting within enterprise funds or generating of revenue within enterprise funds, it has to stay within that. I know that historically the budget, we just go through everything, but I think on the preliminaries, as we work into the budget, it might be a good idea to separate them into enterprise and not enterprise when they're presented in this format, because it does make a difference. I think it would make everybody's life a little bit easier because, it's not something that's going to impact the general fund, right? It's just a matter of moving within those enterprise funds. So that was my only comment.
Okay, and on that note, which I had thought of this, you brought up a good point, Commissioner, jotted in my memory. If the chairs of both government efficiency and approps find it in order to have a joint committee meeting for these presentations, if it makes sense for it to be a joint committee, feel free to go through the right channels to make that happen. Commissioner Gonzalez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was actually, I mean, you got ahead of me, sir. I was actually going to suggest that. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I think that everything that we're seeing as far as efficiency goes really talks to your leadership, because a lot of times it's just about having these conversations, you know? It's just about having these conversations, going through these presentations and figuring out how we can be better. And so with that, I actually want to publicly thank the mayor, because we've had a lot of, I know I'm annoying sometimes, and we've had a lot of extensive conversations. And in the past few weeks, some of the things that I've seen that you've been doing about efficiency and saving this county money are things that I appreciate. You know, thank you for sitting down with me and reaching across the aisle, even though this is nonpartisan. I really appreciate the conversations. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate, you know, a lot of the things that you've been implementing.
All right, with that, Commissioner Steinberg moves item 2B7, or seconded by Commissioner Bastien. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Show the report approved. 8G3 is the next one, Madam Attorney?
Yes.
All right, Senator Garcia, you're recognized as a pooling commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Commissioner Regalado, I'm sure you're doing this for the administration, but I do have a couple of questions as to how these grant dollars are being administered. Are we benchmarking? I know what projects have we been funding for the environment? I have just a couple of general questions on that I would like to get on the record.
Of course.
You're recognized for an ebb and flowing line of questioning.
I guess what we.
Good morning, Dan Wall, Assistant Director, Office Management and Budget.
Yes, did you hear the questions or no?
Well, I thought you may have more. Basically, by investing these dollars, which historically the county had done its own competitive solicitation for, by investing these dollars in an existing process that's been managed, a community grant-making process by the Miami Foundation, we've been able to save dollars, save time, and leverage their fundraising capacity. To the last 2-year cycle, they were able to contribute $338,000 additional dollars to this process.
And I appreciate that. It makes sense. But what are the projects that we've been funded? What have they done? Is there a report that has come back to us to figure out what environmental impacts this funding through the Miami Foundation have had in our community, or positive impacts?
Yes, Commissioner, there was an annual report that came to the board just, I want to say, at one of the last two full commission meetings. And is it attached to this item as well? That prior annual report? No, I believe since it just came to the board, it was not attached to this item.
And through the chair and to the senator, I think that we need to do that in future to better inform you when an item is coming forward, so you can have all the background. So in future, we certainly can do that, and we can make sure that everybody has that report.
And last question, in that report, do we benchmark any of these programs and how they're working?
Yes, we provide, the Miami Foundation provides to the county information over who they fund, how much, what the outcomes of the projects were, and gives a summary of those projects.
Right, thank you, Mr.
Commissioner, if I may interject, thank you. One of the issues that we had with this grant program before is that there weren't many measurables. We did it in-house, and it was usually the same group of people. To his point, the Miami Foundation has benchmarks, but they also have staff, and they're raising some of the money, and they're using their resources to push this out and to also fundraise. So it's a lot more competitive this way. It's cheaper for us, and I think a lot more impactful when you look at how many people are participating, what the outreach is, and what they're doing for the community. It really has amped up this work, working with them and partnering with them to do it, and has freed up our county staff to do other things, and not drawing those resources into something which is lovely, but at the end of the day, not really our wheelhouse. But we'll happy to give you, I guess if we can get them the report.
Then I'll get the report.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you.
move the item.
Thank you. It's been moved by
Second.
Senator Garcia, seconded by Commissioner Regalado. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. So item AG3 passed. 8N1, Senator Garcia, you're recognized once again.
It'll be easy. I'll release it.
You release it? All right. Commissioner,
I just want to vote no on 8P2 if you want to take that quickly.
okay, we'll go to that in a second. Hold on. 8N1 is moved by the Vice Chair, seconded by Commissioner Regalado. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Show 8N1 passed. Commissioner Regalado moves 8P2, seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. Seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, show the item passed. 11A2, I don't have to go back to 803, but I'll get there. 11A2, Commissioner from the 12th District, you're recognized.
I'm going to support it with the item, but I just want to have a question. Same question I probably asked him when he was my state senator, which is, I know that this deals with the condo special assessment program loans. Has there ever been any discussion about trying to do this for homeowners associations at all?
Second.
I'm curious.
No.
You're recognized for,
In the legislature?
Yeah, well, yeah, and the legislature, I know, because I bugged you enough about that. But have we ever just thought here on this, I got here after you got here, any discussions on homeowners associations? Because as I used to say every year, it's not just, unfortunately, the condos, it's also some of the homeowner associations. I'm just curious. I'm going to be supportive of the item, but I'm just,
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead. From my understanding, I've never heard any conversations about the homeowners associations in reference to the help program that we have right now. So no, we haven't. I don't know any of that. And maybe Commissioner Regalado can help with that.
okay, Commissioner Regalado.
Thank
Wait,
you.
are you, hold on a second. Are you,
No, yeah, that was
I
it.
can
That was
an-
that
I
was
can
just-
answer.
I mean, I can understand the reason for the condo loan part. I understand that part, but I'm just wondering if there was ever any discussion about homeowners associations when we were talking about this.
Commissioner Regalado.
Thank you. So the dock stamp program, as Commissioner Steinberg mentioned, was triggered, the request to use the dock stamp money for this was triggered by the change in the state law, which created a burden, right? And then this is also limited by income, right? So it doesn't take into account the value of the property, but it does take into account the income because it was designed in particular to help older residents that were not prepared for these large assessments. But on the homeowners association side, I actually started a program in my district, which you guys can also do, where we are funding homeowners associations for doing some of this in the same way that we do small business loans. So in the same way that we do mom and pop grants, our office is now doing HOA grants because I have a very diverse district. Some people want to plant trees, some people want to do stormwater, some people want cameras, some people want to kill iguanas. It all depends on some people need golf cart parking. What we did is we worked with our attorneys and we created a program and we structured it very similar to how we do the small business one, and it comes out of our budget, and then we help our different homeowners associations do some of this work. So it can be done. We are the first to do it, but you can do it. You legally happy to have a sunshine and share with you what we're doing. I think the dock stamps, remember, that has to be approved by HUD. So it's a very different thing, and you're going to probably run into a lot of problems with the AMI, right? So that's going to be, even if you get it approved by HUD, you're probably going to have that hurdle. And then the accountability piece, right? Because a lot of these homeowners associations, they don't have the legal requirements that the condo associations do, because the state law doesn't require as much. So there isn't, I think HUD would have an issue with the lack of accountability there. But that's not to say that you couldn't try. It would depend. But you probably would have to have some sort of vetting for the HOAs, depending on how sophisticated they were.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Regalado. Commissioner Gonzalez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Commissioner Bermudez, I mean, I think that's brilliant. I mean, I don't see, I do see some of the hurdles that we might have to go through as far as what Commissioner Regalado is talking about. But as far as the AMI is concerned, I mean, I have folks in my district that are living off Social Security checks. And so I don't think the AMI would be an issue there. To the county attorney's office, is there a possibility of trying to figure out if associations could be applicable here?
Madam Attorney, you're recognized.
We would be
Thank you,
happy
Mr.
to
Chair.
work, to research that and to work on that.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. And I encourage you all to hold the sunshine and further discuss this. Seeing no further discussion, Senator Garcia moves item 11A2, seconded by Commissioner Regalado and Commissioner Steinberg. You recognize?
Yeah, I'd like to co-sponsor 11A2, please.
All right, show 11A2 Steinberg as a co-sponsor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Commissioner Regalado, you're recognized on 11A5.
So 11A5, I brought this up during committee. The maker isn't here, but I just wanted to have staff speak on it, because one of my concerns was that this would slow everybody down. So I was wondering, what I mentioned at committee was if they could use video, if there was another path, because what I don't want is to further complicate the situation. I know that it can help, but then if it adds 2 or 3 months, not really sure if that's the best. So if the director is here, there he is.
Director, you have the microphone.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Madam Commissioner. Through the chair, Jose Alfredo Diaz, Interim Director of the TPW. Commissioner, we have looked at this item extensively. There is also always benefit to try to expedite, both for ourselves and the developing community. We are cognizant of the intent of this item, which is making sure that we are actually looking at multimodal and cognizant of that. So if there's any opportunity for video or other ways to collect that information, we would be happy to obtain that as well.
I would just offer a friendly amendment that they get video and photographs first. I mean, the issue is she's not here, but I did mention this at committee. So I just feel like if someone has to physically go out there, how much time are we talking about? Because that's my concern. Like, what are they not doing in order to physically go out there, and what does that mean?
So we would have to modify slightly the way that we review, because there's 2 parts to the review, is the paper, and then if we have to add the site visit, we would likely have to get one of our junior engineers that typically does site visits and collect that data. So our expectation is that the actual time of review itself would not suffer significantly, but you know, some other aspects within the department we would have to sort of divert a little bit. From a timing perspective, we don't consider that it'll be a significant amount of time for the community to have to wait, but internally we would have to work through and potentially add a couple staff members or consultants to help us out with that.
Commissioner, so far during my chairmanship, I've not entertained unfriendly amendments. I don't intend to do that without the sponsoring commissioner here. So we can either take a vote on this or defer the item.
Do you currently get videos and pictures?
We do not.
That's my issue. Like, I
understand the issue.
Yeah.
I just the sponsoring commissioner unfortunately couldn't make it today.
Right.
So we can defer the item.
Yeah, I think we could defer it, because I think if we could just give people an opportunity to send the videos and the pictures, and then if they want to wait for the physical, great. But if they're okay with that, because right now we're assuming that every developer wants you to go in person, and check it out. Maybe they just want to get their permit approved. So if they want to send a picture and a video and move forward, I just want to give them that ability. So I'm happy to move to defer.
All right, we have a motion to defer, seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner from District 8. You are recognized really on the deferral, but.
Yeah, thank you. On the
I know you had been-
deferral. Because the sponsoring commissioner is not here, and the pulling commissioner specifically said that you discussed this in committee, what was the sponsoring commissioner's response when it was discussed?
She wasn't at committee.
She wasn't at committee. Okay, that's what I needed.
All right, so
to know.
there's a
Thank
motion
you.
to defer by Commissioner Regalado, seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. All in favor of the deferral signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Show item 11A5 deferred. All right, Commissioner from District 8, you're recognized on 11A7.
Thank you, Mr.
For
Chair.
the next meeting, yes, yes, Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I pulled this item because it gives me a pause regarding the amount of what I call red tape, particularly in procurement. During committee, we talked about the level of red tape and the number of ordinances that our procurement department and resolutions that our procurement department must follow before doing any procurements. And this item is very specific, and it says, and I quote, that this board desires that in every instance, the county mayor or mayor's designee must analyze whether piggybacking is a competitive contract. Piggybacking is in the county's best interest. And then it goes on to say that every procurement must disclose whether or not due diligence took place on piggybacking and the reasons why the recommendation does not include a piggybacking component. And so this concerns me because we have thousands of contracts which get renewed from different times and a number of different procurements that go out. Piggybacking is something that we already do. There's an item on our agenda today, 8P1, that is a piggyback. My concern is the amount of time that it will take our procurement department to analyze on every single procurement whether piggybacking is available or an option, and then write a paragraph of an articulation of the efforts that they took exploring piggybacking. So AP1, for example, is a piggyback out of Minnesota. If on every procurement we have to research all 50 states and their procurement to see if there's better pricing, I can't imagine the amount of time it would take our procurement department to do that the way that this item is currently worded. So as a board, we are constantly talking about procurement needing to go faster and be more efficient. I understand the spirit of the item. I understand the intention of the item. I'm wondering if there's a way to accomplish the spirit and the intention without mandating that the procurement department do it in the way that it's currently worded.
Thank you. I'll respond to that.
Commissioner from District
Thank you.
7, you're recognized.
Thank you. So I actually did the exact same thing at the school district, and one of the things that I discussed with procurement was creating an item that made it easier to piggyback. So although this item is extensive, we do not use piggybacking as much as we could. At the school district, I created a bucket of things that we then focus piggybacking on. So this item, the way that it's written, is created so that procurement staff could flag all the different items that they could piggyback on and do that. Our RFP process, just the drafting of an RFP, right, takes our procurement staff over a year. That process is over 3 years. This will probably take a few days, right? But it will give us clarity because when a piggyback comes before us, we have no comparison as to why piggybacking was chosen, and if why we haven't done it before. Sometimes it's that we start the procurement process and then no one responds and then we land on piggybacking. But that is not communicated to this board. So it's actually not written to create red tape. The process is already happening within procurement. It's written to provide this board with information on the process that is already happening at procurement. So this happens at procurement when they decide to use piggybacking. What I'm saying is it has to be in the item. and that has to be provided to us. And then that will then create a series of goods and services that we will move forward and determine that it is best to piggyback. So this is part of several items that are restructuring this so that we can look at procurement in different instances, and as opposed to the norm, which is RFP everything, what we're saying is, okay, we're going to do piggybacking, but piggybacking with transparency and with detail, right? So no one can say that we're giving away a contract to someone from Minnesota because somebody rolled up and spoke to a commissioner or spoke to staff. It has clarity, and that we're getting the best price so that we can show the public that we've done our due diligence, we've gotten the best price, and that's why we're choosing the piggybacking. It also allows us to have more information as to what happens to those contracts. So sometimes we'll piggyback on something and then it won't, it didn't work out, right? We're also working on the way that we piggyback is not necessarily the best because we charge different fees, and those fees are not reflected in the piggyback. So there's another problem there that we're resolving. But this actually allows professional staff to provide us with the process that they're doing and put it in writing for us so that when we see the item, we understand why we're not going to a pool or going to an RFP. We've been working on the pooling, and the pooling has been going very well. And when we talk about professional services, we have found, as was expected, that the pooling works better. The pools are always open. People can always jump into the pools, and the pools provide accountability. The piggybacking has a bit of a tarnish on it because historically it has been abused. So this allows transparency so that no one can say that this board is just giving contracts away to outsiders because we don't want to do an RFP.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner from District 8, you're recognized.
Thank you for that explanation, and I appreciate it. But the item as it's worded requires procurement to analyze whether piggybacking is an option on every single procurement. And so so it does. It's tasking them with the additional work of analyzing whether piggybacking is available from all other government entities. And so I'm just wondering what that looks like in practice and whether you're okay with them doing that level of work in addition to the work that they're doing now.
That's already happening. What we're changing is the paradigm, right? What we're saying is instead of assuming that everything is an RFP, right? Start with considering piggybacking and pooling. And then the RFP process is a unique process for certain items that are more complex, as opposed to the way that it's done at present, which is assuming that everything is RFP. And then if you can't get to the RFP, then you piggyback or then you pool. It's a change in a paradigm. It's a paradigm change, right? And they're doing the work, but the idea is have them consider that and then provide us with why that didn't work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bermudez, followed by Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm going to have a question of the county attorneys in a minute, but because I want clarification. I mean, obviously, piggybacking is also, it's permissible because we're permitted to do it because there's a state law, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to ask the county attorneys to be sure, number one, because that's what gives us the ability to piggyback any municipal government. Is that correct?
Recognized?
There's a state law that also our county code and our IO also recognizes piggybacking, and it's also a commonly used procurement method in common law, but yes.
Right. So, and as I understand it, obviously the reason for piggybacking would probably be on smaller contracts because one of the things is we should not, as a government, eliminate what's called fair competition, which is the reason why we have to follow the rules that the state has set that is part of our rules. So, I mean, I'm just curious as to what determination right now is being used when we use piggybacking as to not. Is there a threshold on numbers? Is there, the fair competition aspect of it, obviously is a little bit, I don't know, it could be, you can have a different definition for fair competition than I have, is what I'm trying to say. So what are we doing as a county right now when we look at, what's the criteria we use? Is it the fair competition criteria that the state delineates, which is a little bit flexible? Or is it a threshold? I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me.
I am not, Carla Denise, thank you for recognizing me through the chair. I am not an expert, but our expert NAMDA is here. But Commissioner Bermudez, you are absolutely correct. One of the reasons we have strategic procurement is to ensure that we're getting the best price in the best time, and that we actually are honoring our small and local businesses and those that have a reputation for being able to provide the service that we're actually trying to procure. Oftentimes, when we piggyback, we end up spending a lot of time trying to negotiate with those entities because what the other entity procured is significantly different from what we need, and it takes almost equitable amount of work. And so piggybacking is actually an excellent tool when it's one for one, but it's not always one for one. And so once you've done the research, you found the contract that some other entity has with that firm, you know, the work that we have to do to make it work for us is actually exponentially great. So I think NAMDA can answer your question about the criteria, but I do want to confirm that your assumptions are correct around why we procure, and it's to make sure we maintain competition and fairness and get the best price and the best value for the county.
Namita, you're recognized, but I'd jump in just for a second because, as you all know, I like piggybacking, right? Because we've talked on this dais many times of how, you know, it's efficient, how long it takes to procure something around here. But the commissioner brings up a good point, Commissioner Regalado, which I was not aware of, which is we currently explore piggybacking for all procurement?
Namita Upal, Chief Procurement Officer. Chair, I don't want to use the word all, but I think we do try to explore piggybacking options for a lot of the procurements.
RAI is not, it's a very simple, Namita.
Yes.
Please. Do we currently?
Obviously for service and like if we're building a hotel, right? We're not going to piggyback on that.
Commissioner, like, don't just jump in when I'm, like, come on, this is, like, we're adults here.
So, Commissioner, to answer your question, no, and I'll tell you why. Because if we already know the county, Miami-Dade County has enough small and local businesses that can participate already in our procurements, and we're doing 70–80% of the business with small and local, I don't think my staff will waste time in looking for piggybacking because it does not make sense. Or we know we're buying such a unique IT system that has to meet our needs, and it is going to be it's not off the shelf, it's a customized system, and we're not going to look for piggybacks in those options. We may look at how other jurisdictions procured and drafted their RFP, but we won't look for those options.
Yeah, but that brings up a new point now, which is in those instances under this item, would it now require you to go and procure and explore piggybacking?
My understanding of the item is in those instances, we will include in our board memo the reason of why piggybacking does not make sense.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Is that the intent? And that's,
yes,
we're all in agreement? All right. Commissioner Bermudez, were you still, or does that satisfy?
No, I'm fine. I'm satisfied. I mean, just one last question would be, obviously, we're focusing on procurement, on goods and services, correct? So, you know, that is a difference. I just wanted to point out to all of us, because I, like you, think piggybacking really expedites things and makes it more quick and effective in many instances. But we need to keep in mind that there is a requirement, a legal requirement for fairness, and, you know, it can't be used at all times. Unfortunately, piggybacking sometimes has a bad name for the general public, just because their perception is. But you know, I'm fine with it. She's answered my questions.
Okay, perfect. Vice Chairman, you recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Commissioner Regalado, I support this, and at some point I would love to be a co-sponsor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Regalado.
No.
Yeah, and just.
Oh, wait. Sorry, I thought you paused, so go ahead, Vice Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. But my question is to you, Namita. You mentioned earlier that between 70 to 80% of our local small businesses can carry out the request that we are discussing now, do you have a process or something in writing that would maintain that level of obligation and responsibility to the local small businesses, that they can always know that that threshold would never be reduced beneath 80%?
So, Commissioner, I want to clarify, 70, 80% if the service, if it's a type of commodity or service or product that we already know, we know there's 70, 80% participation in the county, we can get it. Like grounds maintenance, I'm never gonna piggyback on grounds maintenance contracts that are out there, because I know there's a lot of companies here who could do the work and employ local people and keep the dollars local. So for those commodities, we have a commitment to not piggyback. And we work very closely, my staff works very closely with Small Business Division to make sure we capture all of the companies that are certified and their participation level, and can they meet the contract obligations. So we work very closely with them.
No, and thank you, Namada, and you know how I feel about you. I think you are always on point, doing everything the right way. My question wasn't particularly to what we're doing now. It is to ensure that when future bodies come into play, that the small businesses' participation will be maintained at the current level. So my question to you is there a way for us to implement this by way of an action from the board or an internal action from you all to say to the world that at least 80% of small business participation will be had when we're dealing with these type of services and or goods and contracts in Miami-Dade County?
Sure. Mr. Chair.
Can I get back? I mean, I'm fully committed, my team is fully committed, I know the mayor is fully committed.
Can we put that in writing?
I can put it in writing, but I just want to make sure what I put it in writing is I'm going to be able to deliver. So can I just go back and think it through how I can make it happen? Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you. Commissioner Regalado.
Thank you, and thank you, Namida. And really, this is about giving procurement more tools. Remember, we talk about the red tape, but within that red tape, there's also county policy. So Namida has to follow county policy, and the policy of this board is to support small businesses whenever possible. That has not changed. This item does not change that. So this just gives them, more tools. And if it's a simple sentence that says, we have a local small business that can do this, which is why we didn't look at piggybacking, that is within what this item brings. So it's just a matter of saying we considered it, and this is why we decided not to do it. I will say that to the administration's point about the apples to oranges, one of the issues that we're dealing with that'll come in another item is the fees that we charge. So we charge a series of fees that makes piggybacking challenging, because that piggyback doesn't have those fees. We're working on that piece to fix that so that it can be more apples to apples. So that's another one that we're figuring out. It's a little bit more complex, so this one has to come first to make that one make sense.
Commissioner Bastian, followed by Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we look to find more efficiencies in our local government, I think that sometimes we overlook other efficient ways to meet our duties. However, I support this item because sometimes I think piggybacking makes sense. It will allow the mayor to deliver on her promise and to be good steward of our taxpayers' dollars. But I also echo Vice Chair McGee in terms of small businesses for us to make all the efforts possible so that we continue to support small businesses, because in piggybacking, it might be easy to overlook them. So I want to make sure that in that process, we make sure that the small businesses are considered. But I do support the item.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I like the chair. I'm a fan of piggybacking. And I think everybody has made fair points, to the vice chair's point. Miami-Dade County is already has rules and regulations as far as piggybacking is concerned. And what I would say, and I'm sure that NAMIDA is already on top of this, Miami-Dade County has its own ethics code surrounding procurement that, it may not apply to other jurisdictions. So either way, I feel like with the transparency that we're seeing here, those things are going to be taken into consideration before, and we're going to have a detailed, itemized explanation as to why it should and why it shouldn't move forward. So I think we have enough checks and balances as far as our county code is concerned, just to make sure that we tread with caution. But the faster we can make the process, I think the better.
All right, sounds good. It's been
Move the item.
moved by Commissioner Regalado, seconded by Bastien. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. So item 11A7 passed. All right, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, you're recognized on, yes, District 8. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, you're recognized on 14A6. I'm going a little bit out of order, guys.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I pulled 14A6. I really would like to hear from the sponsor on the street names, just because it gives me pause, and I'm happy to articulate why. I have the pause, but I'd like to hear.
Can I
from the
speak
sponsor.
before you?
Commissioner
Yeah,
Hardeman.
that's what I mean. I'm asking you to please explain the item. Thank you.
Commissioner Hardeman, you're recognized on 14A6.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just looking for something. This is not a reason to pause. Sometimes in government we do things that, well, I guess I tend to do things in government that sometimes people don't understand. But part of the reason that these experiences happen this way is because I've lived sort of a storied life in Miami-Dade County. I tend to think, Mr. McGee, that part of the reason that I'm a good attorney is because I've had these experiences with different people throughout my life. And so I have a great way of feeling and having empathy for individuals that many people may not have ever interacted with. And I remember my grandmother, when I was always young, she taught me how to interact with everyone. And so, I treated the janitor the same way I would treat the university president. And then someday the person that's the janitor ends up being the man that has access or gives me access to the school cafeteria at my university when I didn't have any money, right? And so life has kind of repaid me in that way in many different facets. On Northwest 18th Avenue, we probably are dealing with one of the most difficult areas in Miami-Dade County. Before then, I would probably say some of the neighborhood of Overtown. But I think our CRA has done a tremendous job, and we all see the progress that community is making. I mean, it's right down the street. But 18th Avenue is different. Northwest 18th Avenue doesn't have the benefit of a community redevelopment agency to ensure that investment is reinvested or invested in the first place into that space, to give not only the businesses that are existed there an opportunity to thrive, but also the housing, the community. I mean, my middle school, Charles Richard Drew middle and elementary school, intersects with Northwest 18th Avenue. So I remember being on the playing fields out there, on the dots when I was young, when you had to get there early and sit and be still to be accounted for, and watching what was happening on MLK Boulevard. MLK Boulevard is Northwest 62nd Street for those who don't know. And on 18th Avenue, it travels from Northwest 62nd Street to Northwest 71st Street. It interacts with another school at the northern end of the boulevard. One of the schools, these are schools in areas that many people would call underserved, and the children who attend there you will call at risk. That's who I was. And Keone, I know you understand that because that's how we ended up being 500 role models. And so what we've been on a mission of doing in the time that I've been in this space is improving Northwest 62nd Street and then also 18th Avenue. I have a relative that many of you are familiar with. They call him Representative Hardeman. Many a times you'll see him screaming about Northwest 18th Avenue. right? Because everyone has a vision for this space. And I think we compete necessarily because there aren't many resources in order to beautify and make this the space people want to come to. And so what I thought to do with this is that first we should know that we've done some good things as a county since we've been here on Northwest 18th Avenue. You should know first that there's been an investment in the water and sewer infrastructure there, which is tremendous because no new building was going to be placed on Northwest 18th Avenue because you didn't have the level of service necessary in order to connect to water and sewer. And anybody who knows anything about water and sewer, you would know that I don't care what building you're building, if there's no infrastructure there and you're first in, you must and you are responsible for building out the infrastructure. You bear the cost, right? And then everyone else who comes after you just plugs right in. On Northwest 18th Avenue, nobody's going to bear that cost. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it's going to be a vacant spot for the next 100 years. That's just the way that the area has developed to be. And so Miami-Dade County has done some things to improve upon that. When private business won't do it, I think government has a responsibility to step up. So government said, okay, we'll improve the infrastructure there, and we did that. One of the things that we've also done is it is historically a dark place to be, where there is a lot of negative activity occurring. Everything from, I don't know if I want to, well, there's a lot of negative activity that has been historically active in that space and still active. And what we hope to do is cast out that with light. And what that looks like already, we're at the tail end. And the reason this is on for at the short end this way, and I'm asking no one before they rule it, anything of that nature, is because we're at the end of some improvements that we're making to Northwest 18th Avenue that would coincide with when we want to install this signage so that we can have one big unveiling, everything looks nice, and we take really, people take ownership of what has happened on 18th Avenue in those improvements. And so on Northwest 18th Avenue, we've installed traffic circles, we've installed new trees, so dozens of trees. We've re-engineered the way the parking structure is there. We have installed new lighting. And so along 18th Avenue, you'll find that, and the lights haven't been turned on yet. So they're waiting to when this project is completed, which it should be in the next month, or even sooner, to turn on those lights. And we have installed new planting, so it's beautified. We've installed new curb and gutters. We've done bump outs that have plants installations inside of them. It looks different today than it did the moment that I came into office. Now, we still have some major troubles there. We still have a tremendous amount of illegal dumping. So my departments that assist me in cleaning that area know the troubles that we have. We have lots that are underdeveloped. Miami-Dade County actually owns a great majority of the lots that are there between Miami-Dade County and a gentleman by the name of Broadway. We don't do a good job of maintaining those spaces, but it's not. I'm a realist about this, and so many people hold the blame to that, right? So people in the neighborhood hold the blame to it because they're the ones dumping in the space. And then the government, we own the blame because we know that this is an asset that we need to give extra attention to, and I don't think we give it as much as we should, even though we should. And so the goal is to make this an area that people would want to come to and looks better, to encourage investment in the space so that we can have new development in that space, so that instead of all those vacant lots, which is it's sort of difficult because if, for instance, if you're used to like a 10,000 square foot parcel, on 18th Avenue, you may have, in what would be a 10,000 square foot parcel, you may have 7 parcels at 1,000, 1,200 square feet next to each other. And then they're owned by different entities. So there's not even like one entity owning the whole of it to make a development on. So it's a very difficult area to really work with to make change in. And this is something I have been thinking about since I was in Miami on my way to the county about how I could make an impact on 18th Avenue. And so I think we found a way. This item, it is a part of that plan. And although it's different for many people when you hear it, I'll explain to you why I've done it. So typically in street namings, we are naming streets after people, right? We did some today, and we will continue to do those things. And to be honest with you, the only time that I've seen individuals take pictures with the street signs when we name after people is the day that you name it, because it's usually people who are tightly affiliated with the person that you've requested to name the street after. So if you name it, we just had a street naming for H.T. Smith, right? And everyone took pictures with the H.T. Smith sign. That's probably going to be one of the last days, and he's a great man in our community, that people take pictures with that sign, but for maybe his great-grandchildren as they continue to come into the life, right? You don't see people taking pictures on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, even though there's in every city, probably major throughout the United States of America, we have that name. In Broward County, they have a Barack Obama Boulevard. If you've seen someone take a picture from these places, tell me. It just doesn't happen. And so what I want to do was create a tourist attraction to 18th Avenue. Right now, there's no person has any good reason to travel to Northwest 18th Avenue. Most of the business that's there are going to be rooming houses and corner stores. And on one avenue from 62nd Street to 71st Street, you probably have, at least 5 corner stores. And so those who understand those sort of neighborhoods, you understand many times what sort of activity happens in these corner stores. And so I wouldn't suggest any of you to go buy Coca-Cola on Northwest 18th Avenue. You don't have to. Well, even more so, on Northwest 62nd Street, you're hard pressed to even find a reason to stop. And so what we want to do in our community is create reasons for people to stop in our neighborhoods. We want people to have an opportunity to come to these spaces, and once they come to these spaces, maybe they can see, oh, well, this is nice. This is well maintained. You generate interest in continuing the maintenance of it. You can encourage new development of the spaces, and you give people a reason to be in the community. And one of the things that I've noticed about music is that music is like the universal sort of it's a universal thing that brings people together. And Miami has a storied history, I think, in the music scene. And a lot of people, Miami really is one of those places that put music on the map. Today we named the street after Luther Campbell, right? That was something that started in the city of Miami, and then now we basically put the bow on it in order for it to occur. Well, Luke has a storied history in the music scene in the United States of America. You would not have the freedom of speech that is afforded in albums if not for Luke, a man who was born and raised in a place like Liberty City and who used his own money to fight the Supreme Court. That is a tremendous thing to have done at a time when he was an independent artist, right? And so there are other artists that have played that role. Now, the thing about musicians is that many of them have, I think even though you may have a street name after a musician, you still find the same sort of thing. Who wants to take a picture unless it's somebody, if you've traveled, where's Rihanna is from Barbados? If you travel to Barbados, maybe you'll take a picture at Rihanna Street. They have one of those because she's such a huge artist and things of that nature. But what I wanted to do was create essentially an area that when you travel to it, you see a proliferation of street names after music that we know in our community on this space. And so when you envision it, what it looks like is this. If you're facing north from 62nd Street to 71st Street, each corner, east and west of the main avenue, 18th Avenue. So on each street corner, left and to your right, you'll have a name of something like, for instance, Trick Love the Kids. It's a huge line that has been, it's been evident for, probably 25 years. This is something that people say. It brings smiles to people's faces. And on the other side, right, you may have It's Your Birthday Street, right? That's something you don't get anywhere, not just in Miami-Dade County, but in any place throughout this nation. They don't have it. So to me, it is a place where I envision that people will come because it's unique, because it has funny sayings that are there that people realize, they understand, that they know. It plays such a role in our history, and it also really gives us a reason for people to smile at street names, to say, hey, this is something different. And if I can encourage people to travel to that area, not just today, but especially in the future, then I think that we can continue to make improvements on 18th Avenue that give it an identity. 18th Avenue was a space that was a high street, back in the day when the neighborhood was doing better. I think in the future it could be a high street, and it just takes some investment. So in the future, the things that I will hope to do, for instance, are to be able to establish zones where you can have additional liquor licenses there, so you can have venues where you can have nightlife experiences, where you can not just have housing and corner stores, but really and truly an experience that you would have if, for instance, you were in a place like Overtown on Northwest 2nd Avenue, where we have these things sort of already established and also blossoming at the same time. For a long time, the only thing that you would see happening on Northwest 18th Avenue from Miami-Dade County is something similar to a walking one-stop, where you had a lot of county employees, including the former commissioner, who would go down that street, cite people for what was going wrong, and that was something they did. I don't know. They did it once a month, but they did it often in that way, and we don't do that. We go, we make sure that the place is cleaned up, and we're trying to present ideas to make it better. And so when you look at this list, it's different because you've never seen it before, but essentially what it represents is a call to those who are from our community, who have who sing about it, who rap about it, who they're well known, and I want to give them a place to visit, to have pride in that space. And maybe if we do that, then we can start to make some improvements. And so yes, so some of these street names are for instance, We the Best Terrace, Big Money Baller Street, Born and Raised Street, right? It's Your Birthday, Poor Little Rich Girl. These, if you're from Miami and you know these names of songs or these sayings, I think you realize how much that this could be something. And so it's a little different than naming the streets after people. And so for those of us who are a little uncomfortable with that, I ask you to support me and my community in trying to make this a place where people feel comfortable coming. That's what I'm asking of you in this space. It doesn't have any negative effect upon anyone. There's no sort of background check that needs to be done, because it's just a creative way to say something nice. To me, it's just the same as naming a Metro Rail stop as Miami World Center, right? You've come to recognize what Miami World Center has given to our community and the future that it has in our community. And so it's an acknowledgement of this is what people want to see. So if we name these streets in this way, all we have to say is just go to 18th Avenue and you'll be able to see all these places. And I see a time when a red bus stops there and people get out and they're able to interact in the community, buy food, engage, and take pictures in this place called 18th Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner from District 11. I'm sorry. Excuse me. You still have the floor. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardiman, for that explanation, and it helps to give a lot of context, because just reading the item, obviously the names stand out to me, and I figured that that was the spirit that you were coming from in trying to make something of this area with these names. The concern that I have is that changing not just one street name, but more than 10 of them from 62nd all the way to 71st, and the names that you've chosen, I understand them. They're named after very popular songs, but the public hasn't had an opportunity really to come out and speak to whether or not this is something that they want. And so I think about the neighborhood and those that live there, and they're explaining to their friends or their families, hey, how do you get to my house? Oh, go up, 18th Avenue, make a right on Poor Little Girl Street, make a left on Big Money Baller Street, and right in front of Chase This Money Street, you can find the corner store where we can meet. My concern with the street names that you've chosen, like Grind With Me Terrace and Run to Yard Street, is that for those that own businesses along this corridor that you mentioned, it concerns me about what it does to their property values, because their address is going to change to 89 Poor Little Girl Street or 60, you're right, thank you, I said it wrong, Poor Little Rich Girl Street. It concerns me about the property values, and it concerns me about it not having the intended effect that you are seeking. That's my concern. And so if the business owners along 18th Avenue came in here, and the church that is right on the corner of 68th Street, AME Metropolitan Church, which you want to change the name to Big Money Baller Street, if they came and said, listen, I think this is an amazing idea, this is a beautiful vision for our community, we fully support this, and I'm fully in support of it. And regarding Luther Campbell, thank you for bringing that item. He is historic, he's a trailblazer. You're absolutely right. Our freedom of speech is more solid and more protected because of him, and thank you for bringing that item. But this is not naming streets after legendary artists that have been pillars in our community. These street names include slangs. These street names, I have a concern that from the outside looking in, those that may not understand the area will read those street names, and it will proliferate exactly what you are trying to protect and uplift. That's my concern. And so I can't be in support of the item as a result of that. And I think with items like this, it kind of opens the door to us naming streets in ways that I don't feel comfortable with. I don't want Back That Ass Up Boulevard anywhere in Miami-Dade County, for example, even though it's a very popular term and phrase that's utilized in music. I just have an issue with this from a comfort level, and without having the community here to speak on it, I personally can't support it. But I support your efforts. I support your vision. I just think that there may be better ways to go about doing it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to jump to Gonzalez, but for a response, your recommendation.
Yeah. What destroys the property values on 18th Avenue are prolific drug sales, prostitution, illegal dumping, dilapidated buildings. That church that you speak of, I mean, it's been given a great deal of property from our former commissioner. They've had no development on it. Continuously just having below standard attention to the area. Constant killings. Yesterday, was it yesterday? I think it was the day before yesterday. I was traveling on 18th Avenue because I traveled that way to monitor the construction that's there, and I watched a woman force a man staying inside of a building. He was trying to exit the building. She barricaded him in the building. So I guess that's a form of probably, I wouldn't call it kidnapping, but false imprisonment. And then once he got out of the building, he continued to strike her with a broomstick, and they fought for some time before she walked down the street. And everyone watched, right? Including me, because who knows what comes out of the building or what's the response to that. Those are the things that destroy the neighborhood. In fact, being that I was raised there and I'm constantly there, I'm sincerely confident that people in that space would actually enjoy this street naming and that experience. And those people who live there are not going to come to protest that. And so, I understand, if you don't get it, but this is just one of those things that I think you trust to the commissioner who represents that area, and I promise you, if me renaming the street Poor Little Rich Girl, if it affects the property values, then I'll change it because it's just a street naming. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, there's so many things I want to say right now, bro. There's so many things I want to say right now. But I do understand and feel the concerns of Commissioner Cohen-Higgins. I do get it. But at the same time, you know, I'm going to tell you what I see, and you tell me if I'm right. Right? I see an intent that you are trying to bring your constituents in. You're trying to bring them into the process, into government. That's what I see, right? I think there's a really good quote that I like from Steve Jobs that says that the greatest moment in a man's life is when he realizes that the great people that came before him are no different than he is, right? And I think that the reason that that's an important quote is because a lot of times we don't see that. And I say that personally, right? Like, for example, I get criticized for wearing sneakers. But people, when they ask me why I wear sneakers with suits, when I was growing up, my mom cleaned houses for a living, right? My dad worked in a warehouse. I didn't know one attorney. I didn't know one doctor, right? Except for the person that I went to get my checkups with, right? Going to law school was not like a real possibility for me, right? Like, the fact that I'm sitting here is a miracle. And so, like, for example, I would love to name a street Tupac Street. And a lot of people would probably jump and say, hey, man, that's, you know, Tupac did a lot of bad things. But a lot of people don't know that Tupac at 19 years old was offered the opportunity to lead the Black Panther Party and almost went into politics, right? They had an entire plan for him to become a senator. But he chose music, right? And so people think that we live in a democracy, but in reality, we live in a constitutional republic. And because we live in a constitutional republic, we need people to be involved in the process. And a lot of times, a lot of these negative connotations will take young people to go into a negative avenue. But if you can make it positive, then you can have young people not only become part of the process, but see that their voice matters. Like, for example, in my district, we have something that we call 152 Street, right? And on 152, we have a very prolific basketball court, right? Anybody has played basketball there. We have a huge problem with graffiti, or we had a huge problem with graffiti, and we stopped it. How did we stop it? I got two major graffiti artists that grew up in my district. We had them come and redo the entire basketball court with graffiti. Now, as you can imagine, in the beginning, I got a lot of pushback. And folks were like, how are you going to allow these young people to come and graffiti an entire basketball court? But after we did that, a lot of the graffiti artists from the community ended up talking to these kids. And I call them kids. They're, you know, gentlemen in their 20s. They're kids to me. But these are people that are now getting deals with Disney, Sony, Carnival Cruise Line to do art. Right? And they basically explain to these kids how they can take their talent and do something positive with it. So what I see is you trying to bring hope and bring the community in. That's what I see. Aside from the economic, the economic positive feedback that you can get from tourism, right? Somebody going in front of Trick Lutta Kids street and taking a selfie. I see that, right? But I see much more than that, right? Because I remember when that song came out, and I remember what it meant for a lot of people, right? And there's negative connotations with a lot of things, but I appreciate the fact that you're trying to take something and make it positive. So I'm supportive of this item.
Commissioner Regalado.
Thank you. And I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. I think I'm very conservative with street namings. And that's why my suggestion, my friendly amendment is that we create this as a district that has rules separate and apart from our normal rules for street naming. Because I don't want people to think that we can just name it whatever. We have a process, right? And in that process, we usually consider the human, their accomplishments, like a series of other things. I don't want the public to think that this is some sort of free-for-all. I agree with you. I think that what you're doing makes perfect sense. And I think that you're trying, it's a very thoughtful way to bring a community together around the redevelopment of their neighborhood. There has to be a change, right? And how do you commemorate that change? How do you show people that things are going to be different? You have to give them a tangible thing. And unfortunately, we live in a community where government has made and broken so many promises that people don't believe us when we say that we're coming into a community to change things and that we're going to pick up the trash and that this development will bring different people and opportunity and jobs, right? So I get it. I think that it can work in certain areas. It would not work in my district, right? But I don't represent a district that needs that level of transformation, right? So I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the vision of it. And I think in some parts of Miami-Dade County, when you talk about transformative change, you need to bring that level of creativity in order to effectuate it. My only request that it would be a special district where the street naming is happening, because I don't want people to think that, now you're going to call me, right? And I'm going to name a street in Coconut Grove after Jimmy Buffett, a song, nothing against Cheeseburger in Paradise, but I'm not up for naming a street that. And then, since we're all making recommendations, I'm personally a Two Live Crew fan, so Move Something Way. I'm just saying. If you want to go down that road, that would be fun. Move Something Way. I think it goes with what you're, with what you're going with here. But I think to the attorneys, if we could create a special district and kind of encapsulate that, I don't know, I think that would make everyone feel a little bit better about the novelty of it.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Before we go to the county attorneys and administration to ask that question, the sponsoring commissioner, do you have a response and/or position?
I think it's a good idea because this is different, and that's what we started with. The moment that I proposed this, I've been thinking about it for quite some time. Actually, I knew that it was going to be somewhat of a. It's hard to wrap your head around it because we just never seen anything like this before, especially at one time, and so that tells you why I'm doing it. In fact, I haven't even had this. I haven't had a conversation with any of the artists, so not one of them had an opportunity to say, "Hey, I want this for me." It's just something that we thought that could work. I will, and it's so I don't mind it being a special district, considering that this is a little out of the ordinary for Miami-Dade County. So I would take that. I would take that friendly amendment. I would also be accepting to amend it to include, such a well-known Miami sort of entity, and I will replace. But my thought was maybe there was a song called "You Go Girl." So
I love it even more.
Instead of Lum Lum Street, we would amend it that Lum Lum would be changed to "You Go Girl."
I love it.
Love it. So, Mr. Attorney, as it relates to the district, creating a special district, how do we do that? Can we do it, and how do we execute it today?
It might be too much, Mr. Chairman. My fear is that they're going to say you're expanding the legislation. This is beyond what we've advertised. Blah 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 blah. And so I think the best thing to do is you pass it and then you bring the legislation that creates the special district so that you could do something like this.
Is that what you want to do, Commissioner?
Yes.
That's what we'll do. Thank you very much, Madam Attorney, Mr. Attorney. Are there any other questions on this particular item? Commissioner
Yeah,
Bermudez.
let me just say that I applaud and really give great credit to the work Commissioner Hardiman is doing in the area. Actually, it's a shame people weren't doing that before you got here, which is very important. I wish I would have, the explanation you gave today, had it not come up as such a late item, it probably would have gotten some of these questions answered. Having said that, I understand Commissioner Cohen-Higgins' concern. we just named the street after Luther Campbell, and you were right on point on what you said about him. But had we chosen his most iconic song to name the street after him, I don't think we would have had, it would have been a little more different, right? So,
What's that song?
Yeah, I'm not, I didn't say the title. Or if we went to Senator Garcia's district, and well, no, I believe not. So look, I have the same concerns as Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, but I want you to know, and I'll be super supportive of this being a district, so it gets much better attention. And I don't, and I do want to make it clear that I do applaud your thinking out of the box. It just, from my perspective, at this point, I can't be supportive of it because of some of the concerns that were expressed by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins that I share. But I'll make it clear that I do applaud you for trying to make a difference in an area that from experience needs to have a difference. So, and I will say one last thing for those who are fans of ska music. "Poor Little Rich Girl" was a song by the Specials, for those of you who like Jamaican ska music. So you might get some British fans that get confused and think that it's actually a song by the Specials, a ska band. But anyways, I just wanted to make that clear. I have the same concerns as Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
All right, the vice chair, and then we'll go to round two if we need to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner Hardiman. I applaud you for what you've done and what you're going to continuously do for that district. I've always stated that language is the DNA to culture. Language is not it's not a language that's only spoken to the rich, but language that is actually spoken to the poor, the destitute, and those who are left out. One of the things I applaud you for today, openly, is the fact that your creativity is on full display. We talk a lot about knowing our districts and knowing who and what the district wants to represent them. So when businesses, people, and government officials, when they need help in understanding a certain geographical area, they go to the people who was elected in a democratic system by the people. So the people have chosen you for that district to represent the interest of their personal lives and their business lives. It leads me to the second point. The second point here is, this is why I believe language is so important, and it's a universal tool that we can implement and also express cultural differences in, is that Frank Sinatra, if we were talking about My Way or something stupid, that's fine, fly me to the moon, I suspect in the South, where I'm from, areas that I represent like Cutler Bay and portions and the outskirts of Palmetto Bay, that they would be in all support of that because it represents a language that they know best based on their experience in life. I don't expect a place like a Cutler Bay or the outskirts of Palmetto Bay and other areas that have high fluency to want to have street names that are after these songs that don't carry the correct subject-verb agreement, thereby limiting their belief on whether or not that particular song title is appropriate for our kids to see. Well, I bring all of that up because Walgreens used to have this slogan, and I think the slogan for Walgreens was something like, at the corner of happy and healthy. That became a mantra. So when you get ready to go to a Walgreens, the first thing you say, and my mom used to say it all the time, baby, go to the corner of healthy and wealthy, or healthy and happy and healthy, and get my medicine. What you have single-handedly done is taken a true and tried study by the people and the top major corporations in this world, and you have literally lifted their playbook, taken their playbook, to 18th Avenue. So now when people are coming into Miami-Dade County, a county that brings in about $120 billion in sales taxes, in part because of all the tourism, you have literally taken the same playbook that Walgreens used to put it into 18th Avenue, a place that has been decimated financially and economically for years. And you have now simply told the world that when you take those little buses, those double-decker buses, now you can come to the corner of these Miami iconic songs and take photos there, thereby creating jobs for vendors on the corners when they sell their merchandise and materials. You now get to see that the roadways are going to be actually more packed now because of the monies that you put in your community for infrastructure for those roads. You're now going to be able to see kids walk those streets with dignity and pride because you just have done something that many people talk about in politics, but they would never do it. You know what they talk about in politics? They talk about how tough they are and how they're willing to sacrifice. You, my friend, have shown the world that you can literally take the same business principle that these major corporations are using and put it smack dead in one of the most economically challenged communities in Miami-Dade County and change the mindset. That's what you just did. It is one of the most creative, one of the most, like, I'm sitting here mind blown because I'm saying to myself, why haven't we figured that out a long time ago? Because we can't take the same approach and ask for the different results that we've been doing, waiting for government to come in with the programs. No. Poor people like great things. People who live in poverty like great things. People who live in affluent communities, they like great things. So why are we picking winners and losers as it relates to tourism? We shouldn't be in the business of picking winners and losers as it relates to tourism. If 18th Avenue can use this as a component to drive market value to the properties, then it is my humble opinion you should do this and you should maximize it to the point where nobody can ever question you again on it. And lastly, some of my fellow commissioners who did bring up those issues, rightfully so. And that's why I believe in this 13 commissioner districts approach to everything, right? Because, again, in my area, in some of my areas, there's no way I can support this. I can't. But similar to your area, the majority of my area is represented by the language, that DNA of the culture that you represent. And because we're in a democracy, the majority of my people will tell me that is something we should support. But we cannot look at other commissioners differently because they cannot do it because of the type of language and their district breakdown. So we respect them on that. But as it relates to what you are about to do and the economic impact that we're about to see for years to come, oh my God, I second your item. I just want to be a co-sponsor. This is history.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Regalado, back to you.
Thank you. I understand your point, and we'll hear from the attorneys about the special district, but if we can't include it in this item, I would recommend just a standalone motion that we do here, right? Because I think it would give everyone more comfort if we did the two writing together. I don't know if you're open to that, but I think
if it allows, if we can allow it, then that's fine.
It's up to the chair.
Okay, sorry. So to allow for this district?
Right, for the creation, for an item that creates a special district specifically for this area so that it's separate and apart from the regular street namings.
So if the attorneys want to jump in, I think that would be a whole separate item, right?
Yes.
Commissioner Regalado, I just want a little bit of clarification on what you mean by a special district. Are you referring to a special rule that would apply for co-designations for this particular area?
Yes. It would be a special district that would allow for the naming of streets in this area after songs instead of after people.
Based on that understanding, Commissioner Regalado, I believe the chair is correct that that would require a separate item that would amend the board's rules of procedures.
But if the chair's okay with it, if we're okay with it, I mean, we are the rules. So I think it's a very unique item, but in order to give everyone comfort with it, we need to pass another item that creates a special district, because I think the key is we don't feel comfortable with naming streets. Some people don't feel comfortable with naming streets after songs, right? We're all, obviously, only the commissioner of the district can name a street in their district. So to the vice chair's point, right, this is already inherently geographic. However, that being said, to provide everyone with more comfort, this would be an exception to our general rule that would need to move together in the future. So if you wanted to do this in the future, you would have to create a special district where you could utilize this, as opposed to next month someone bringing an item that they're naming a street after a song instead of after. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a song, just not after a person, right? I mean, because I think that's the general issue, right? And by the way, within that, we're like, it has to be a person. We prefer that person be dead. We want them to have achieved the following. Dying is not a qualification for getting a street in Miami-Dade County, right? So there's a series of things, right? So I think we're creating an exception, and there should be there should be a vehicle for that exception. So it's happening in real time. We would just be suspending our own rules in order to do it. But we're suspending our own rules in order to provide ourselves with more comfort and a vehicle that we're just amending that general rule to create a vehicle so that you could do this in this special district.
So, Commissioner Hartman, are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, so to the attorneys, what would be the right process? Do we take a vote on the first item and then this is a floor motion? What would be the proper?
Floor motion would have to come together before the floor motion.
So the attorneys, again,
So
to
once
the attorneys that work for Miami-Dade County, not the attorneys on the dais.
Yes.
That speak when not recognized. But how would we go about the procedure for this?
So special districts are a separate type of legal entity, and I'm not sure that that's necessarily what Commissioner Regalado is speaking to. If you want to name an entire geographic area as a district for purposes of namings, to the extent that that's something that you want to do as part of your rules, we need some time to flesh that out. We could, if you want to amend this item, we need time to draft that. That's not something that's currently contemplated. We can, now, if you want to name the area and waive and suspend your rules about how you do that, that's one thing. But to create a special district is usually done by ordinance. To create a mechanism in your rules to do that is done by ordinance. But I understand that what you want to do is create an exception by waiving your rules to just name a geographic area. And
Commissioner Regalado.
Yes. So Jerry's right. When I say special district, that triggers a legal definition, right? So whether we say special district, like our special benefit district or special taxing district, that triggers a series of things. What I'm saying is to create an exception within our street naming rules for a special area where you can break from those naming rules with the supermajority of the board, right? So the idea is to create an exception within our street naming rules that can allow a commissioner to bring a special area under a policy umbrella that has a reason for breaking from the norm, which this one does. He's articulated that. So I don't think it's complicated. We're amending our own rule to allow for this under special circumstances. So it's not so much, I think it would be like a special area designation, right? So he's actually articulated a geographic area where these namings will be happening. It's not spread all over his district. It's a particular geographic area. There is a policy reason for it. And that policy reason is the reason why the board is breaking away from its normal rules regarding street namings for humans.
So, again, I'll recognize you in a second, Commissioner.
Jerry, does that make sense?
Yes, Commissioner, I understand what you're trying to do. Your rules currently contemplate namings of roads, facilities, or property. The rules currently do not contemplate designating or naming geographic areas. We can certainly prepare an item to amend the rules to allow for that. I understand what you're trying to do. I think that's why the sponsor had said we would do that separately. I don't know if suspending the rules dealing with the public hearing requirements and the naming requirements works in this scenario, because your rules currently don't contemplate having that as part of, you know, what's happening here. If we want to do a separate motion directing us to prepare the item or directing us to implement it, we can certainly work with your staff to try to do that as expeditiously as possible, so you can take that up at the end of the meeting. But I need to think through how to do that in light of what the rules say.
Okay, District.
Can we defer this while we draft?
Commissioner, go ahead, Hardiman.
The reason why I'm subjecting myself to asking this board to move forward, needing a 2/3 vote when when all of my colleagues aren't here, is because it's time sensitive. Because we've invested millions of dollars into 18th Avenue. Typically, this would just take a majority vote of people. This now requires 2/3 of the people that are present, and we want. When the contractor turns on the lights on 18th Avenue, and I mean, there are people here who are from 18th Avenue, who work on 18th Avenue, who even work for the county, who then are part of fraternities on 18th Avenue, that could probably raise their hand and speak to something like this. I mean, I see former commissioners here that didn't represent Dade County, but understand what our neighborhoods are going through, because they were the commissioner like I was the commissioner. And so part of the reason I'm doing this is because it takes time to make signs, to have the posts. If you've ever watched the man who installs the posts for a street sign, that is a process. I mean, it's like art. They take their time with it. I mean, I've watched it from my home when we installed a new stop sign. It is not something they just go out and say, you know, X marks the spot and they put it up. It takes time. And so the goal would be to have this name so that we can begin the process of putting those posts in to be able to put the signs. And that's why I'm asking for this sort of time. And Mr. Chairman, you know, it's really hard to swallow why this is such a hard thing for us to do. I mean, we would, you know, and I appreciate the Vice Chairman for his comments, because, you know, everything I do in this day, especially for things like this, I'm doing it from my heart because I have a concern for my community. And one part of my community, I couldn't do this, but another part I can. And so we're trying to equal the playing field across all of my district. And, you know, this board waives rules. And that's what the county attorneys were saying. Well, you could just waive the rule to do this in this way that we want to do it. And that's part of the item, is waiving the rule. But I wish, well, you know, we named the street after someone without a background check that we knew people didn't agree with all the way around, but we did it for the particular commissioner's district because that's what he asked, and the people that are in his district would support it. We didn't have people come down and say to name it that. No one came and exclaim that this is what we want it to be. And those of us that were present supported it, you know, like it or not. Like it was like, it's what we did because we understood that that's what the commissioner asked for. It wasn't for any economic development. It wasn't particularly to encourage, to eliminate crime. It wasn't meant to do anything, but just to show support for someone that he believed should have been supported. In this is not third person. There's no one person that's exalted. Really and truly, it's meant to be a mechanism to attract people to a space. I mean, this is the work that I've been doing now, I mean, for the past 13 years. I struggle to find why we would be against this, you know? Besides the things that some people just have that they don't do certain things. But one of the things that I don't really enjoy doing is naming streets after people. But I've done it where it's been needed of me, and I will continue to do it, but it's not something I make a habit of. And so this is something, yeah, in all of Miami-Dade County's history, you've never seen this done. But I hate to tell you this, in all of Miami-Dade County's history, you've never had Keon Hardman on the days. You never had a kid that was born in Scott Projects. But my family was the last people to leave the building. The whole building was shut up and there was one light on. You know, if I show you the pictures of my family fighting on behalf of Haitian people, fighting on behalf of poor people, fighting on behalf of Nelson Mandela, I mean, alongside people who were highbrow, well-educated people, people born in the projects with a high school education were there. That was my family. You know, we do this because we believe it's the right thing to do. Not because no one asked me. Not because, you know, I'm currying any favor. 18th Avenue in Miami-Dade County is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. Not one person who is here would live adjacent to 18th Avenue. Any police officer here will tell you about 18th Avenue. Look at their faces. You would think with what I'm doing, I'm asking you all to do something nefarious by trying to project light onto 18th Avenue. I hope, and I'm asking my board members to support me in this. I highly doubt over the next 50 years, you'll find another commissioner doing this. There may not be a need. And so I'm asking on the behalf of the people that I represent, duly elected, where I defeated someone who had been in office for 16 years by double digits in a district that I represented for a very short time. They want me to implement certain things to bring change to an area that hasn't had that opportunity. I've never had the opportunity to represent 18th Avenue or the unincorporated Miami-Dade County in my district until I was elected here. I have one of my staff employees that's here. I mean, she could tell you how many years we've been thinking through this. We're finally there. And so I apologize that, you know, it causes us to have a supermajority and we have so few people here. But I'm asking you to help bring light into a community that is full of darkness, literally. Literally, there is no light. Literally, with what we're doing, we're going to be able to cause a change in the community. And yes, it involves music and laughs and asking for something that we just haven't seen done before. But we never had any, you know, we never had Doge before. We're doing that. We're doing it in the state. We're doing it in the county. We're doing it at the national level. I mean, we're doing it. You know, and so sometimes you have to step outside of the box and do things that you would not have ever considered, but it's necessary. And so, you know, I really ask my colleagues to vote in favor of this. And I don't think that I honestly don't think that we need to create any other sort of exception or rule or whatever, because, I mean, we just monitor ourselves. And, you know, and no one has ever asked for anything like this before. And I understand why, you know, people are a little weirded out by it. But you would think that I'm asking you to name, you know, make a quote about something that that offends people, right? That offends us in Miami-Dade County. But I'm not. And so, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I'm willing to hear what everyone else has to say. I don't know what my votes are on this, but you know, I really do hope that people support me on this matter in which I'm trying to create a space for benefit of the people in the area, so we have a more healthy and wealthy Miami-Dade County.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bastian.
Yes, I've been listening with a lot of attention. I've never seen Commissioner speak with such passion, and I understand where you're coming from. It's about cultural relevancy, cultural identity. I understand. I hear you, I see you, I feel you. I will support this, and because I think it is important for the commissioner, for us colleagues, sometimes to give our colleagues the benefit of the doubt. I know exactly the areas that you're referring to, you know. I've been operating in that area for the past 44 years, and I don't see, I thought about this while I was listening to everyone, and I don't see any reason why we should say no. Even though this is new, we are concerned about doing something that we haven't done before, but if the commissioner believes that it will bring value, cultural value to his district, I believe that we can support it, and for that, Commissioner, I'm supporting this. And I hope that our colleagues will join us in supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bastian. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the attorneys, there's the discussion of creating a district, which I support. I think it's a good idea. And this may be to the sponsor or to the attorneys. On 18th Avenue, right at the beginning of this district, because you have it running from 62nd to 71st, on 62nd and 18th, there are two signs that say, "Welcome to Broadway Art District." There's two signs on both corners of the street. And so my question to you is it already designated a district? Because there's two signs that say, "Welcome to Broadway Art District." And I'm asking because, again, this is not an area that I'm particularly familiar with, but on the discussion, which has been a heavy discussion about redesignating the area a district, it seems as though it's already been done.
To the attorneys or the administration?
I don't know if, we can research whether that's already been designated. I was trying to do that on my phone.
So, Commissioner, I was going to go to you now.
Yeah. I couldn't. It's possible. Well, let me say this. I said it earlier, and so I'll repeat it. But that area, 18th Avenue, used to be a space for cultural entertainment and things of that nature a long time ago. And so when you talk about the signs, I think they're talking about the painted signs on the ground. Those were painted by a gentleman named Marvin Weeks, who was an artist on 18th Avenue, who still is there. He paints lots of things. He's painting some things. If you come to my office, I have personal items that I own of Marvin Weeks. And Broadway, who is an individual who was there, sort of adopted the name Broadway because Broadway is what they've called 18th Avenue. Because it was, in a sense, like a little Broadway, right? During the time in which the area was doing much better. And so we have that. We're not changing that. And so that's more of a reason why this sort of resolution is in line with what's there, because that area was a bustling sort of area for people to do business. I think the closest to that would be like 15th Avenue, but 15th Avenue also fell into sort of a disrepair, drug sales, especially during the 80s, things of that nature. And you know what we're doing on 15th Avenue, or if you don't know, that's what a redevelopment of the, what we affectionately call the pork and beans development is occurring. So that area is doing much better, but it still has a long way to go. And so 18th Avenue was like that space to be in. And so that's why this still falls in line with exactly what the spirit of 18th Avenue was and what we want it to be in the future. So it doesn't change any of that. In fact, one of the streets we've named earlier, it was not after a person. It was called Tree of Knowledge Street. Tree of Knowledge on 18th Avenue Street was named because there were individuals that would all meet there, and they created like a little group. They would meet under this tree and just talk about the issues and the troubles of Miami-Dade County. And so it became like a pastime for them. And somehow in Miami-Dade County, sort of spirit, someone cut the tree down at the area. And so they removed this tree that apparently was just pushing on the sidewalk a little too much. And when it came down, the community was in uproar because we had cut down what they call the tree of knowledge. And so as a remedy to that, we named the street, in my term, Tree of Knowledge Street. There wasn't a lot of discussion about it. One thing I will say that I'm happy is that, this is probably the longest discussion that we've ever had on Northwest 18th Avenue. I'm here to tell you that it bears a lot of discussion because there are a lot of real issues on Northwest 18th Avenue. If Representative Hardeman didn't leave, he probably kicking himself because this is the sort of meeting that he would have loved to have. Because essentially we have groups that we reestablished that that are concerned with places like 18th Avenue.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, Commissioner, I guess my question to you is I can call a question. I do want to say on the record where I'm at. I've not discussed it. I've not argued this. I unfortunately am a no on this for reasons that I don't need to get into now. But obviously, I wanted this to get the discussion it deserved. So I did something I've been very shy about, but put it on the agenda as a late item so that this could get the proper discussion. And I understood that it was of somewhat time sensitive for the community and for yourself. And also out of deference to you and what you're trying to do, I do commend you for that. But based on discussion, I can call the vote. Would you like to? What is your will as the sponsoring commissioner?
Let's hear from your Vice Chairman.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, and I said this earlier, Commissioner Hardeman, that I applaud you for what you've done and what you're going to continuously do, but there are other areas in this country that have named streets after songs. And in particular, there's one called Penny Lane, and that was after the Beatles. And that's in Pittsburgh. We got Abbey Road, again, the Beatles song in 1969. Bluebird Hill, that's in St. Louis, Missouri. So we have that there. Lonely Street. So we have precedent. We have precedent to say what you're doing works. What we're looking for at this particular moment is to recognize the value that you're adding to that community through the eyes of those who want it from that community. So what your legislation is doing is setting up a three-head opportunity for change in your district. We're talking about you bringing value, you're bringing tourism, but you're doing what other places across this country have already done, and that is to electrify their community by changing how we think in our mindsets. So, colleagues, I simply ask that if the structure of a district is going to be a huge factor in your vote, I do believe that our colleague hasn't given us any reason to ever question his representation when he gives us his word. His word is he's okay with passing this today, and he's also okay with establishing the district once the county attorney's office or whomever get together and create the vehicle for that. If that's okay with everybody, I'm okay with it. But I do believe his word carries weight. He hasn't given us any reason to question his commitment to effectuating the items and the positions that he said it earlier. So I'm in full support and not second it.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. So it's been moved and seconded, but Commissioner, again, to the spirit of seeing how important this is to you, the attorneys have approached me and have mentioned that there might be a vehicle. And I want to explore that before we take a vote just on this as it stands, given what I've heard on the day yesterday. So Jerry, if you want to mention what options.
Yes, I'm trying to satisfy Commissioner Regalato's idea, not creating a special district, but understanding that the issue would be to identify the area bounded by what I believe is Northwest 62nd to Northwest 71st Street between Northwest 17th and Northwest 19th Avenue as an artistic district for sole purpose of co-designating county-owned or maintained streets within such district in honor of iconic songs by artists born and raised in Miami-Dade County or otherwise call Miami-Dade County home. And so that would narrow this, right? That would be the beginning of the resolution, to narrow this to just the identification of a geographic area for this sole purpose of naming the streets only within this area after these artists, and then that could be accomplished via amendment.
All right, do you wish to amend that?
I would accept that amendment.
I have a question, because that's a great idea. It sounds really good. But how does that affect us voting on this today? For us to do that, then I'm assuming we would have to wait, vote on whatever you would proffer, and that has to make reference that that designation would pertain to the commissioner of the district. Or am I mistaken?
You recognize, Jerry?
This would just be incorporated within the item itself. This would not be a separate motion or a standalone motion. This would be an amendment to the item that, as stated by Commissioner Regalado, where the board would just be identifying the area that is, where all these streets are subsumed as an artistic district for that sole purpose. And so only to satisfy these code designations within area within Commissioner Hardiman's district.
But these co-designations would stay as the way they are stated right now in the.
That this
correct?
would be the introduction to the resolution with the balance of the resolution. If you're just looking at the title, the balance of the code designations would remain with the additional amendment sponsored by Commissioner Hardiman to Lum Lum Street.
What I understood from Commissioner Regalado was that it would be two different items, not one.
But Jerry figured out how to do it in one.
You figured out you can do it in one by keeping the names as they are on this particular item, correct?
It could be done via an amendment as she originally requested, or the sponsor had originally said he would, be happy to do it as two separate items. He would like for this item to move forward, and we can then do it separately, and it would still be an identification of the district.
Yes or no? Will the item keep the names of the streets as proffered by Commissioner Hardiman? Yes or no? I don't want to hear,
My understanding from what Commissioner Hardiman has accepted, the answer is yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes. This is an amendment to his existing item.
Okay, so I think we're getting somewhere. So we have a motion as amended. I remain my position because I think I could get behind this the way that you first described it, Commissioner Regalado. This is not much different, but I think you at least got someone else on your team. So with that, it's moved as amended by Commissioner Hardiman.
Second.
Seconded
Thank you,
by
Jerry.
Commissioner Regalado.
Can I have a roll call vote on it?
Sure, please, clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Garcia. Commissioner Gonzalez.
4.
Commissioner Hardiman.
4.
Commissioner Regalado.
Yes.
Commissioner Steinberg. No. Commissioner Bastien. Yes. Commissioner Bermudez.
No.
Commissioner Cabrera. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
No.
Vice Chairman McGee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm making a motion to defer to the following meeting.
We have no.
We'll take the vote, and then we'll.
Got it. Thank you. Yes.
And I vote no.
Motion fails 5-5.
Mr. Chairman, I move to defer to the next item, to the next meeting.
Okay, hold on. So, to the attorneys, the item is now,
No, the motion failed.
the motion failed.
Right. So I move to defer the item to the next meeting.
Okay, so there's a motion to defer to the next meeting, seconded by Commissioner Bastien. All in favor of deferring the item, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay? Nay. All right, the ayes have it. Show the item deferred. All right. Longest discussion, not just on 18th Avenue, but on street namings, I believe. All right, Commissioner Gonzalez, you are recognized on 14A4.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And, just just want to let my colleagues know that this item brings Miami-Dade County into compliance with the recently passed Senate Bill 2C. Now, I'm just going to quote from the bill to put everyone at ease. The bill specifically states the sheriff or chief correctional officer operating a county detention facility must enter into a written agreement with the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement to participate in the immigration program established under Section 287G of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. Section 1357. So this is not a controversial item. This is literally just to make sure that Miami-Dade County is in compliance. And I want to thank the mayor because the mayor and I had a conversation about this. The mayor has already signed this agreement. So all we're doing is ratifying that in order to be in compliance with state and federal law.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm recognizing Commissioner from District 2 as a polling commissioner. Commissioner Bastian, I would just say that I know that the topic of immigration as a whole is very important, not just to you, and I know it's very near and dear to you, but it's really important for all of us on this dais. But I did want to just echo what Commissioner Gonzalez says. This is something that that is required for us to be in compliance with state law for sure. And I understand it's just a ratification of that. So thank you, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Immigration is a complicated issue. Historically, as we know, immigration enforcement has always been a power delegated to the federal government. And there are reasons for that. It is a complicated matter. I know it is complicated as someone who worked as a paralegal in the early 80s for several years, and someone trained by some of the best immigration lawyers in the nation. I understand the intent of your item, Commissioner Gonzalez, and I understand that the state passed the law, legislation, and I understand that we need to probably sign an MOU. But I believe that in a county where 55% of the population were born outside of the U.S., a county where the immigrants that we are legislating about are our doctors, our teachers, our engineers, our hospitality workers. Immigrants represent and then work in every strata of our community. That's why I believe that we must enter this MOU, and when we enter it, we have to enter it with wide eyes. We need to know what we are signing into. And unless we amend this item, I feel like an obligation to vote against it. First, I'm going to start with some questions for the administration, because as you know, we've entered into ICE detainers before in the past, and we stopped, and there are reasons where we did.